My parents resent me for starting my own family. I come from a big family. I'm the second oldest of 9 kids. My older sister Jane is a year older than me since Jane and I were the oldest. We always helped with the little kids and the chores around the house. In fact, it was common for my parents and other adults to refer to us as Jane and me and the kids. It's like Jane and I were not considered children. It's more like we were 2 other adults living in the house. We were homeschooled, so we were home all the time. Part of my job is that I would wake up, make breakfast for the kids, then get them started with their school or activities. Before I started my own schoolwork, Jane would sleep in because she was more of a night owl, and it was her job to help at night with the baby. Jane and I did most of the chores around the house. We took turns either cleaning the kitchen or doing the laundry, of which there was a lot. I did all the guy stuff, like mowing the yard and taking out the trash. As I got older, I would delegate some of these chores to my younger brothers, but it was still my responsibility to make sure it got done. Once I was old enough to drive, I would run errands and take the kids everywhere. I can't tell you how many times I would take the kids to things like playdates or doctor's appointments. I would often tuck the kids in bed and tell them stories. To me, these things were all just normal. But looking back on it, I was more like a second dad to the kids than a brother. Jane and I did have a lot of freedom as teenagers to go out with our friends. If the chores were done, we didn't have cell phones back then. If we wanted to go out, we would just tell our parents we were going, and they didn't care as long as we were back. By the next morning, I moved out when I was 20, but I still spent a lot of time at my parents', and one of my younger siblings was almost always at my house. One brother, JJ, pretty much lived with me since he was 14 because he and our mom didn't get along. When JJ was 17, he got in a wreck and he called me instead of calling dad because I was just the one who handled those kinds of things during all of this time. My parents always talked about how important it was for Jane and I to help with the kids because they were so busy with their ministry. I can't count how many times I had to drop what I was doing to take care of something because mom or dad were counseling someone. Sorry, I feel like I'm rambling. I hope I have painted an accurate picture of my childhood. Let's move on. I had not really dated much, but when I was 25, I met and started dating and we fell in love fast and got married less than a year later. My younger siblings love Anne. She is a great cook and hostess. Our house became the hangout spot. My younger siblings started calling her mama, and something they still do to this day. We have now been married 15 years and have 2 kids of our own. My mom and Jane did not like Anne. Jane and Anne get along okay now, but Anne and my mom do not have a good relationship. I never understood why, but I think I have finally figured out it's because they see it as in having taken me away. As Anne and I focused on our relationship and started a family, I spent less and less time doing things for my parents. My dad liked Anne at first, but over the past few years, their relationship has soured. Throughout the years, my dad has made comments to me about keeping up my responsibilities. One time he called me about one of the younger kids who had gotten in a fight with my mom, and said, "You better get your brother and change his attitude. It's not okay how he treated your mom and you're going to make him apologize." A few years ago, Anne and I set some boundaries with my parents, telling them we were not going to raise or discipline their kids. Our home is always open to my siblings, but we no longer let my parents try and use us to straighten them up. My parents have not taken this well. About a year ago, Anne injured her foot and couldn't walk for a while, just as she was getting better. I was diagnosed with kidney disease, which then turned into kidney failure. I've had several surgeries, with another one coming in a few weeks. It's been a rough year. During this time, my parents have not only refused to help, they have actively made things harder for us. Things like promising to help with our kids, but then canceling at the last minute. Recently, my sister-in-law had a baby and my mom has been staying with her and helping for the past 6 weeks. My sister-in-law has said that mom is a godsend and is so wonderful. My dad has gone to help every weekend. This hurts me because my mom wouldn't give us a single night to help with our youngest when he was born. Update: my parents resent me for starting my own family. Update: I spoke with my wife Anne about it last night. I said something along the lines of, I've realized that my parents resent me for starting my own family and not helping them as much, and that is why they treat me so differently, and I think you've been trying to gently tell me this for years, but I was too dense to get it. We were sitting in the bed at the time, and she leaned over and patted me on the head and said, "You are so pretty." I laughed for like 10 minutes. It was a great emotional release. A lot of you said she sounds wonderful, and she really is. I just can't express how much I love her. About Jane. My older sister Jane did get married and start a family about 2 years after I did. Jane and I had a falling out and didn't speak for several years, but we are okay now, just not very close. Our falling out was more about religion than anything. She is very religious, like my parents, while I am not. I am religious and we attend church, but it's not our whole life like it is for my parents and Jane, younger siblings. The youngest is 22, so they are all adults now. The second two youngest passed away several years ago, so there are 8 of us now. I am very close with all of my younger siblings. They still come hang out at my house all the time. And they are all great aunts and uncles to my kids. All of them, including Jane, are upset with how my parents treated me this past year. Help with my kids. While I am disappointed in my parents for not helping, I do not need their help, and I have close friends. Plus, we both have siblings that help, and parents live far away, but they help when they can. We really are okay and feel very blessed and loved with all help we have received. Therapy. Part of my kidney treatment plan includes access to a therapist, and I love her. She has been great in helping me learn to live with an illness. I am not sure if she is the right person to speak with about my parents, but I will ask her and see if she can refer someone. If not, I will wait until after my surgery to bring this up, as I need to just focus on that right now. Setting boundaries. When I say my parents won't help, it's not that they say they won't help. It's that they offer to help and then either bail at the last minute or they change the plan so much that it causes Anna and I a lot of stress. A few months ago, Man was sick and my mother offered to pick our kids up from school. It's a long story, but she kept changing things and making it very complicated. And my youngest ended up being left alone for a little while and he got scared. After that, I had a harsh talk with my parents and told them how disappointed I was in them and how I needed to focus on my health. And they were making things worse. I told them they are not allowed to take my kids anywhere and they are not allowed to just drop by at my house. And in fact, they were not even allowed to offer to help. My parents were mad about this, but all 7 of my siblings took my side and rallied about me. And so my parents have respected that so far. Going no contact is something I don't want. I still love my parents, even though they have not been great parents. My kids love them too, and I don't want to take that away. They are good grandparents. I don't think my parents are awful people. I think they had this vision of how they wanted to have this big family and this big ministry. And I think they just didn't realize the responsibilities they put on Jane, and I have spoken to them in the past and expressed how it was messed up that they put so much on us as kids, and they have apologized. It's so stupid how their parents pretty much left all the responsibilities to them. They were pretty much the parents of the household. Then when he goes to start a family of his own, they decide they won't help him or more or less tease the idea of helping. It's so messed up what they're doing. I'm glad the other siblings agree, because it's not fair. At least his wife is supporting him through this and I'm glad he met someone so wonderful. I hope they figure things out soon and it goes great for them.